Andover Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. We'll start with a call to order. We'll start with Knight.
Marla Canfield.
Eric Peterson.
Gary Israel, Vance Garwood.
Thank you. Item number 3 are the minutes from the August 16th, 2022 Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Vance, thanks for covering for me. I appreciate it. If there are any conversation, now's the time. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes as written.
I'd just comment that Vance did a wonderful job, and I would make a motion to approve the minutes from August 16th, 2022.
Thank you, Gary.
I'll second that.
Second by Marla. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will abstain. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Item number 4.1, communications, potential residential development report. Les or Justin?
I actually looked into that today just to see kind of where we are as far as residential permits go. And we're within one permit of where we were last year. So I think that's kind of the new normal. It's been a little bit up and down as some new subdivisions have come online and some other subdivisions have finished out, but it seems to be steady.
Les, is there a breakdown of how many of those are new permits for new development or new builds and how many are for rebuilds from the tornado?
We track those tornado houses separately.
Okay.
How's it feel contractor wise, supply chain wise? Are we getting close to back to normal, you think?
We're nowhere near what we used to call normal as far as material supply chain. But the contractors are telling me that they are starting to catch up to the market. The materials, you never know what the material shortage of the week is.
Is that right? Well, thank you. Any other questions for Les on that?
No.
All right. 4.2, committee and staff report.
Nothing to report other than the residential.
All right. Then we will move on to agenda item 5.1. Let me get to the checklist. Here we go. I now call agenda item 5.1, which is a public hearing on case number Z-SU22-0002. It is important that you present any facts or views you have as evidence so that an informed recommendation can be made by the Planning Commission to the governing body for their final decision. By state statute, the governing body does not have to hold another public hearing on the matter, although they may listen to whomever they wish. You will be asked if there is any new information which was not heard at this hearing. It is to everyone's advantage if you present all the necessary information at this hearing. After the city's zoning administrator provides the commission with background information, I will call upon the applicant. Public comments will be heard following the applicant. After all speakers have been heard, the applicant will have an opportunity for final comments. The Planning Commission will close the hearing to public comments and will then consider the 14 factors on which to base their recommendation. During this time, the Commission may direct questions to the applicant, the public, and/or city staff. You should be aware that the Planning Commission can recommend that the site be platted or replatted if necessary, and that a site plan may be required for approval. You should be aware that any uses permitted outright in a district by the regulations can receive a zoning permit. Furthermore, if the applicant chooses to describe various features of their development plans, the city can only enforce those provisions which are covered in zoning and other city codes. Anyone wishing to speak must be recognized by the chairperson and give their name and address. Please use the podium and speak clearly so that your comments can be recorded for inclusion into our minutes. Before we proceed with the hearing, I'll ask the commission members if any of them intend to disqualify themselves from participating in this case because they or a relative own property in the area of notification or have conflicts of interest.
No.
Hearing none, we'll move on to notification. Official notice for this hearing was published on the City of Andover municipal website on August 27th, 2022, and notices were mailed to the applicant and 6 real property owners of record in the area of notification on August 29th, 2022. The record shows that at least 20 days have elapsed between the publication and mailing dates and the hearing date. Unless there is evidence to the contrary from anyone present, I will declare that proper notification has been given. Although we do not encourage such communication, I will ask the commission if any of them have received any ex parte verbal or written communications prior to this hearing, which they would like to share.
None.
No.
Hearing none, I will move on to the zoning administrator's report. I now call on the city zoning administrator to provide us with a report on this case.
First off, probably a little clarification. Gary raised a question, and I hope we communicated well, that this case is on 2 full lots on a portion of another. So it's a fairly large site on that exhibit that's up on the wall now. The lot to the left is a portion of lot 5, and then all of lots 6 and 7, which makes the site a little larger maybe than is easy to imagine. This is in the Marketplace PUD, which dates back to as far as the late 1990s and some revisions and amendments through the 2000s up to today. It's down to those last few lots to finish out. This particular set of parcels is zone B3, and the applicants here requesting a special use for a car wash because the car wash is not one of the outright permitted uses. It's one that has to be looked at on a special basis because it has its own special needs and effects. It can have a substantial amount of traffic, it can have noise, it can have lighting. So each and every case for a car wash is heard on its own merits based on its own location. It's in kind of a peculiar position because it's between Cloud Avenue and the future frontage roads and on-ramp for Highway 54. You might notice in those drawings, there's a band of land between the subject property lots and the highway right-of-way. That's a strip of land that the city and KDOT acquired from the developer some nearly 15 years ago in anticipation of the freeway project. So it's kind of an unusual circumstance, and you kind of have to know the history of how it got to where it is today.
Thank you, Les. Anybody have any questions for Les?
When the highway is built, will it have an exit on Plaza Street, or will that come off like a frontage road? Just out of curiosity. I mean, 54
Plaza Street will be east of the ramp, so it
Okay.
won't have direct access to the ramp. It'll have direct access to that one-way frontage road.
Okay.
Okay.
It's probably preferable from a traffic standpoint for this to be one business, I would assume. It seems like with the roundabout there, it'd be kind of awkward with if there were 3 different businesses or 2 different businesses in there. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vance. Gary and I talked about that a little bit ago, that the modern roundabouts don't necessarily have a perpendicular
Yeah.
intersection.
Yeah.
They try to kick that approach off to where the approach is more on the angle to enter into that circle,
Mm-hmm.
which then applies some access controls for driveways that need to be set back a good distance from the actual roundabout. Those are all things that traffic engineering will look at when it gets to that point in site plan review.
Like the entrance would probably need to be near the Mexican restaurant, probably about as far as
It's-
it can be.
Right, somewhere in that vicinity, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
So I will now call upon the applicant to make his or her presentation on the request and any response to the zoning administrator's report.
Did not realize I was supposed to present.
Yeah. Come to the podium, please. Appreciate it.
Sure.
No, thank you.
Any one of these?
I think the podium there, and yes, start with name and address and then keep on going.
Adam Clements, Builders Inc., residential address?
No,
81.
you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just to let you know, Adam, I've been looking at this and I put together a little PowerPoint presentation for
Okay.
you.
Really?
Yeah, so this is my
Excellent.
little PowerPoint presentation.
And Adam, you don't have to do a presentation or anything like
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
just
It was-
so that you're available for any questions that they may have, or if you wanted to add
I'm
anything.
working on something right now.
Okay.
So anyway, let's look at this because I had some questions. So I
Sure.
put this together and so what do I point this at? And okay, so this is just, what this is, your special use marketplace. So here's the lot that we're looking at, the whole thing as one big lot in relationship to that whole area. So what I did is I took out of Google Maps a Tommy's Car Wash and dumped it on there to see how it would fit. And the only reason I did that is because when I first did it, I didn't have all three lots. I only had the right lot. And I was looking at it and said, that's not going to fit. You're not going to get a car wash on there. And then after talking to Justin, it's all three lots. So I did this. And you'll notice, let's see, where's the, which one's oh, there it is, the laser pointer. So you can see right here, I put an entrance right here that gets it as far away as possible from the roundabout, but separated from Los Cocos, so that you have an entrance and an exit right there that will get you back on the cloud. Now, whether this configuration is right or not, I flipped. This is the Tommy's Car Wash at Greenwich, and I flipped it over. But, my thinking, and this is just me, the vacuums would be on this side, and this is your entrance. And at some point, we have tons of nice trees and things like that. So, let's see, the next slide. These are just images from the Tommy's Car Wash there on Greenwich to show what the building looks like.
On Ridge,
Greenwich,
Greenwich,
yeah.
okay. Because we have one on Ridge too. Just want to clarify.
13th, I guess it is.
The Placio.
What did I say?
You said it.
Okay.
You're fine. You're good.
So, just to show what the building looks like, it has its distinct look. It's, pretty nice over there by Chicken and Pickle. And, so we're looking, these up here are the front side. And then I run around to the back, and this is from over by Chicken and Pickle. So, a nice looking building. I thought at one time it was going to be too much red, but I went out looking today, and if you're coming down Kellogg, well, we've got Flint Hills Liquor Store, Billy Sims, Arby's, the gas station there on the corner. All of them have red. So we're going to have this red line of buildings going along there. So, and then I just picked up some of the buildings that are out there. There's Capital Federal on the top left. This is the new culinary school. over here on the top right. There's Los Cocos, which would be right next to, and there's the Merit Trust building. So site planning's done a nice job of getting some, nice buildings in there. And I threw this image in there that you would be right across from the new heritage development, which, we've seen some beautiful renderings of things of that sort.
Jerry Jones is doing a great job.
Yeah. So that's, I just put that together because I didn't think it was going to fit on the lot.
So when we originally engaged Paul Jackson, who's the master developer for this respective site, he was also in hot pursuit of us, knowing that we were wrapping up the site 3, which is at the Palazzo in front of Chicken and Pickle. And as we started to explore options with Paul, let me back up. Prior to that, there was a lot of activity in that area, in that respective CUP or master development area. And we started to dial in on this respective site. And Paul came back to us and said, I understand that you don't need these 3 contiguous lots, but it's going to make a lot more sense for us in the spirits of negotiation with all of the other turbulence of inquiries and LOIs, whether they be bona fide or not, for you to just take down all 3 at once. And so we decided to do that with some sort of speculation that a remnant was going to be inevitable. So in other words, Gary, we're not going to use the entire site. We're using Baughman and Company, which is a very well-known civil engineering company in the metro, to do all of our site planning, civil, landscaping, grading, et cetera. And what we have come to find out is that we are going to have a remnant over on the far west side that's going to be approximately 25,000 square feet. And that will probably end up being some sort of offering to the marketplace, like a kiosk type user, like an ICT. That's probably a good example. ICT. They just went in at 21st and 127th.
Yep.
They're at 13th and Tyler, right next to one of our other locations. But we're not going to. There's only so much buildable area on there. We understand the exclusions within Paul Jackson's, marketplace as far as coffees and whatnot, at least for the time being. So we're very aware that the site's larger than what we need. Baughman and Company, particularly Trevor Wooten, has been great in laying out this site. And I understand, you can take it off a Google image and drop it in, but the scalable difference, in all of its nuances, is, it really boils down to site planning when you actually have a full set of drawings. But I do appreciate that because we don't like excess. So we do hope and plan on preserving the remnant, which would be to the far west, for some sort of kiosk, freestanding building, quick service restaurant type concept. But nevertheless, we plan on closing on the dirt or the land regardless of that remnant. I hope that answers where it lays out. It'll push more to the east than you really think. And once you look at the actual site plans, you'll see that. But that's more of a civil engineering, expertise.
It'll have to meet the requirements for setbacks and things like that you'll get from staff.
Yeah, Trevor's a stickler on setbacks and easements, so he's been slapping wrists a lot along the way.
Yeah, one of my major concerns was just traffic. How was traffic going to be handled so close to that roundabout?
Well, one of the, I think quite well. The whole idea, one of the main value propositions behind Tommy's, which is why we got so behind it, and bringing it into the Wichita market, is just the fluidity in traffic flow. I mean, it's license plate recognition. As soon as you become a member, like as you drive in, the like you're in. The idea is to get a vehicle in and out in 2.5 or 3 minutes, regardless of the stack lane.
Yeah, I know over the club car wash,
I'm very familiar, and I'm also a member.
First and 127.
Me too. Yeah, I go to that one all the time.
That one, I've seen them queuing on 21st Street.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because on days when the weather's good and there's been bad weather before it, there are cars lined up to go in. They're back out onto 127th, and then there's cars queuing on 21st, waiting to turn south on 127th.
I live in Eastboro, and so by nature, I'm also a member of club just because of the proximity to my house, and I have shared the same frustration. Not to fault Club Car Wash, they have a great concept, but I just think the general technology platform and the logistical efficiencies that are behind Tommy's are in time, but everybody's going to see are bar none different. And a lot of that has to do with the technology. A lot of it has to do with the logistical flow that, I mean, club, we spend $5 to $6 million on a car wash, so we can't afford to screw up. They're spending somewhere between 3.2 and 3.8 on a car wash. So there's a little bit more risk tolerance on their end. We can't afford to screw up.
Sure.
So we're hypersensitive. Like when we engaged the franchisor, we wanted to, internally what we like talk about, even from an operational standpoint, is that like we are and will continue to be the Chick-fil-A of car washes. We're not going to be the Hardee's. Hardee's makes a lot of money. Hardee's has a place in the world, in the marketplace, but we want to be the Chick-fil-A.
Okay, thank you.
My dad.
Anything else for him?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any members of the public who wish to speak? That was self-evident, but I have to ask it anyway. Any written communications been received by staff?
No, sir.
None? Okay. Applicant, anything you want to add to what we covered, or are we good to go?
We're good to go if you guys are.
Thank you. So hearing no further public comments, I'll hereby close the public portion of the hearing. There will be no further public comments unless the commission wishes to ask questions to clarify information. The Planning Commission will now deliberate the request. There are 14 factors which the commission must consider in order to make findings and ultimately a recommendation. And I
You can
will,
read those whenever you're ready.
oh, if you want to, please.
All right. Staff items. Number one, do adequate sewage disposal and water supply in all the necessary public facilities, including street access, exist, or can they be provided to serve the uses and that would be permitted on the subject property if the change in zoning were approved? Staff, the subject property is served with public streets, water, and sewer. Two, if the special use request was approved, would the subject property need to be platted or replatted or have in lieu of dedications made in order to provide needed rights of way, easements, building setback lines, or access control? Staff, the subject property is platted and adequate access controls have been applied in conformance with the US 54-400 corridor study. Three, if the special use request was approved, would the subject property need a screening plan for existing or potential uses? Staff, screening and buffering are not required by the Unified Development Manual. However, the US 54-400 corridor study recommends that the view must be considered in the design and will require higher quality architectural and design treatments. At a minimum, view termination points cannot include trash enclosures, service entrances, or truck access. Four, what fact-based information in support of or in opposition to the requested zoning change has staff received? Staff, none at this time. Five, if there has been an error in the application of these zoning regulations to the subject property, would the requested zoning change correct the error? Staff, no errors are known to exist. Six, how suitable or unsuitable is the subject property for its current use? Staff, the subject property is suitable for its current zoning.
Concur.
Concur.
7, is the length of time the subject property has been vacant or undeveloped under its current zoning a factor in the special use request? Staff, no.
Concur.
Concur.
How reasonably well suited will the requested special use of the subject property be with the current zoning of nearby properties? Staff, the proposed use could be compatible with surrounding uses with adequate architectural design, treatments, screening, and landscaping.
Concur.
Concur.
9, has a special use been requested because conditions in the area of the subject property have changed or are changing? If so, what is the nature and significance of these changes? Staff, no.
Concur.
What are the current land uses, character, and condition of the subject property and the surrounding neighborhood? Staff, the surrounding land uses are widely mixed and proposed for transition to a more uniform mixed commercial land use pattern by the US 54-400 corridor study.
Concur.
11, would the proposed special use of the subject property allow land uses which might have detrimental effects on nearby properties? If so, how? Staff, the proposed use is more intense than most of the permitted uses in the B3 zone and would therefore have detrimental effects to nearby uses if not properly designed and landscaped.
Concur.
Concur.
12, how would the requested special use conform with the city's comprehensive plan and other adopted master plans and policies? Staff, the surrounding land uses are widely mixed and proposed for transition to a more uniform mixed commercial land use pattern by the US 54-400 corridor study. The proposed use is contrary to the implementation of the US 54-400 corridor study principle to promote active streets. Auto-oriented uses, including service stations and drive-through facilities, should be discouraged within 1/4 mile radius of the plan nodes.
Concur.
Concur.
Do any professional persons knowledgeable on conditions that affect this special use request have information or recommendations to provide which would be helpful in its evaluation? Staff, approval with a condition to require architectural design treatments to the proposed building, landscaping, and screening of the entrance and exit of the car wash to better conform to the US 54-400 corridor study urban design recommendations.
Concur.
Concur.
14, how would the potential loss in value or hardship imposed on the applicant compare to the relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare if there is a change from the current use to the requested use? Staff, without adequate architectural design treatments to the building and screening, the proposed use could have an impact to the public health, safety, and welfare, which would outweigh the hardship imposed on the applicant.
Concur.
Concur.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. Vance, thank you. So having discussed and reached conclusions on our findings of fact, I would remind the commission that a proper motion should reflect the factors on which it is based, and if approval is recommended, then consideration should be given to any conditions that might be attached. Is there a motion to either recommend approval, modification and approval, disapproval, or to table the discussion?
Mr. Chairperson, before we go for a motion, could I just bring up a couple of things? You know,
Yes, sir.
a couple of things that staff has mentioned in here a couple of times is architectural design, landscaping, and screening. And I think we need to also have in there that we need a professional traffic study done by a professional traffic operations engineer to make sure that we're not interfering with what's going on Cloud. Because we're getting a lot of traffic from Dillon's heading out that way over towards, oh, what's the road over there? Is it Yorktown? Where people would be shopping at Dillon's, heading over to Yorktown to turn east to go to Augusta. So I think Cloud could be getting a little bit crowded, especially with the amount of traffic that this car wash could introduce to that area.
Gary, I agree with you. That's a important observation, and particularly with the new freeway improvements that are just looming out there a few years, Plaza Street would actually tie on to the one-way frontage road on the south side of the highway. So the logical move for Andover Road traffic that wants to get to this development, for eastbound Kellogg traffic that wants to get to this development, would be to pass by all of the confusion at the Andover Road intersection and come over here and use Plaza Street and the roundabout to get to all the local access for the businesses. So that location of the driveway is very important to the
Right.
future Cloud Avenue success.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know as part of the planning commission, we're just talking about the zoning. We don't have anything to do with the architectural design or the landscaping or, any of those details, other than we can recommend that they go through the site planning committee and they take up all those issues. So. Let's see, Mr. Chairperson.
Yes, sir. Please.
Having considered the evidence at the hearing and the factors to evaluate the application, I, Gary Israel, move that we recommend to the governing body that case number ZSU 22-0002 be approved with conditions based on the findings of the Planning Commission on findings number 8, 10, and 12. And let me get back here. And that the applicant go through a professional traffic operations engineer to study the traffic impact of the business at that location.
Thank you, Gary. Staff, was that motion, worded the way we need it? Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second by Vance Garwood.
Thank you, Vance. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Well worded, Gary. Thank you. Oh, I'm not off duty yet, Justin. Sorry about that. The case will be forwarded to the governing body with the Planning Commission's recommendation and a written summary of the hearing for consideration at the regular meeting of October 11th, 2022. The recording of this hearing will be retained for at least 60 days after the final determination is completed on this case. Protest petitions against the case, but not directed at the Commission's recommendations as such, may be received by the city clerk for 14 days after tonight, October 4th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. If there are properly signed protest petitions with accurate legal descriptions from the owners of record of 20% or more of the total real property owners within the official area of notification, both inside and outside of the city and not counting public street rights of way or specific statutorily excluded property, then such a change shall not be passed except by a 3/4 vote of all members of the city council. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move to item number 6. Member items?
I have
Anybody?
one.
Do you?
Since I've been going through all this area and driving through the neighborhoods and stuff, staff, is there anything happening with the gas station, the vacant gas station at Andover Road and 400? I mean, it's been vacant for a long time and it's become a used car lot on occasion.
That could be part of the bypass, the new.
That parcel is in the path of the freeway improvements.
Okay.
And the remainder, they call it an uneconomic remnant, where the parcel that's left over is so small after highway acquisition that it's not usable. That parcel borders on that. We actually had an owner several years ago who took that parcel all the way through the platting process. But as he started to develop a site plan, he realized that between the small size of the parcel and all of the access controls, that it just wasn't viable for him, and he backed away from the project. So it's in a tough spot.
So does the city own the part that they need now?
No, we don't, nor does KDOT. That footprint of the freeway is now in the National Environmental Protection Act study phase, where they look at all of the effects that this freeway would have on adjoining property and nearby property and drainage, species, flora and fauna. Noise is one of the things they study. And that report will come back, we think, in January of next year. And then KDOT will get active in acquisitions of rights of way for the freeway project.
Is there a lot to acquire still?
A tremendous amount in Sedgwick County.
Really?
Yes.
Like for 143rd, 159th, you mean?
Yes. Andover, we've picked up some of the rights of way that we need. Like in this case, you saw that we picked up a strip here from Marketplace. We have right of ways from the Heritage Development across the street. We picked some up over in Green Valley. Just as opportunities have arisen, we've picked up rights of way. But it's a tall assignment for KDOT.
So they first of all try to come to an amicable dollar amount with the owners, and if they don't, then they move toward eminent domain, or what's
Yes.
the process look like?
Yes.
Okay.
First is always a arm's length
Yeah.
acquisition.
Right. So how about the YMCA?
The YMCA had just been built when the US 54-400 corridor study was done. And they meandered the right of way such that there wouldn't be any acquisitions necessary from the Y.
So what's going to happen with the Y post tornado?
The architect and the contractor are working on plans to rebuild it.
Where it's at? Same footprint?
I
I mean, give or
can't say
take.
exactly the
I
same
understand,
footprint,
but where it's at?
utilizing the parts and pieces that they can.
Uh-huh.
There's some of the structure that they think can be salvaged.
And I heard that they're gonna try to have the water park open for next season.
Is that right?
Really? Wow.
I have one more item. Any progress on the little business on Allison? It was, I can't remember the exact one, but it was such a narrow little piece of property.
So that was the plat that we just had you sign.
Oh, that was
yeah,
it?
that was that little piece. Yeah, this evening. So we've had to take a look at that Mylar and get it all situated because the lines weren't showing through,
Okay.
and the Butler County Registrar kept kicking it back. So once we file that, hopefully within the next week or so, that portion will be taken care of. But we haven't heard anything from
the builder.
from the builder from Mr. Riggin.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. No, I forgot about that one. I'm glad you brought it up. Anything else for the good of the cause? Well, in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I, Gary Israel, will make a motion to adjourn the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you, Gary. Do I have a second?
Second by Vance Garwood.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And we are adjourned.